Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex, and today I'm giving you the full breakdown comparison of TVA Loki, the variant with a heart of gold, and President Loki, the one who gets his hand bit off by the alligator Loki. Now, before we get into all of the nuts and bolts of this comparison, I do want to let you know that if you've already purchased one or both, but most likely one of the Loki uniforms, fear not. This video is not going to say definitively that the TVA Loki uniform is just hands down better or the President Loki uniform is hands down better. Both of these uniforms do different things well, believe it or not. There isn't actually a clear winner for all game modes. And the best part is these uniforms are both going to be meta for Loki. So whether you have one or the other, you are getting a superior product. Even if you purchased the Agent of Asgard uniform 6 months ago, this is going to be a big jump up for you offensively and defensively. So there we finished that in about 45 seconds, which is what I've come to expect from the testing I've done prior to the video. I've done quite a bit of testing in multiple different world boss scenarios because it's actually worth noting. Usually the character's just like, clearly better. We're just going to skip right ahead to World Boss Legend, but that's not the case here. What you're going to be seeing with President Loki is you're going to be seeing a couple of things. The one thing you're going to see, the one thing you're not going to see is the behind the scenes. I actually had to do that TVA Loki cut 4 times because the first 3 times I actually died. Now, I died to a combination of getting time frozen by the mechanics and Cull Obsidian hitting me. But that is going to be one of the things that I highlight later on when we go into Mephisto World Boss Legend, the survivability increase. Now, TVA Loki doesn't have bad survivability per se, but President Loki is on another level. I actually just goofed up his rotation here, and we're still going to show you just how dominant this uniform can be. So for those people that are jumping to the conclusion right away that TVA Loki is just hands down better, that's just not the case. Now what you're seeing here is not only a faster clear time, but a much safer clear even with a botched rotation. I botched the rotation twice, and I still managed to clear it 10 seconds faster. Why is that? Because Cull Obsidian didn't move. He got mind controlled, and then he just sat there. Here's where we're going to go and cover the character now so I can show you what the build looks like, but this is the first thing I want to highlight. In my opinion, for World Boss Ultimate content, so everything besides Null, Mephisto, and the second phase of Thanos, I think President Loki is going to give you more overall because of the mind control, right? I know we're sort of beyond the days of mind control being top and just a character having mind control being super OP because, oh my gosh, you can lock the boss. I know we've sort of passed on that, and you can one-shot Black Dwarf with Beta Ray Bill and Moonstone, but it is still valuable information to know that this character can lock the boss up and still deal very high damage, right? Despite missing part of the buff that TVA Loki gets for guaranteed crit rate, he still delivers in World Boss Ultimate content because he has mind control on 2 of his skills. 4, Illusion Field has the mind control for 3 seconds, and he increases the damage you receive by 10% for 3 seconds, and then his second skill, of course, Deceptive Oration, makes sense. He has another 3 seconds of mind control. So you combine that, and he's got 6 seconds of mind control, so he just plays lockdown, right? And I'm actually not sure which striker ability he uses as a striker, but if he uses 2 or 4, that would make him a formidable striker. Again, that's aimed more towards newer and intermediate players who need and who are going to rely on the mind control, but it is worth noting. He is way tankier because you can basically lock down the boss and have them doing nothing but twiddling their thumbs while you just deal damage. That is actually going to increase President Loki's damage over the long term of the fight because I don't have to go through cutscenes. I don't have to run away from the boss when they're doing certain mechanics or certain attacks. That goes the same for Ebony, who disappears and does those meteors. We really used to highlight how much better characters with crowd control were, like mind control, paralysis, etc., because of enemies like Ebony, who constantly, and Corvus, constantly iframe, constantly disappear from you. So even though TVA Loki has better offensive weapons because of his passive, he is going to be a little bit slower for World Boss Ultimate content. Now, just to go over the builds really quickly, we do have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Odin's Blessings just to jack up his energy attack. It's going to be 55,000 whether I'm using one uniform or the other because they have the exact same attack buffs in terms of like the percentages, and they have the exact same stats because that's how synergy uniforms work. They have to have the same rolls on them. They both also have the chain hit and the ignore dodge, so that is going to be the same, the 30% ignore dodge, 10% chain hit. Also, because you're doing essentially the same rotation, I'm not sure if you noticed, but I'm going to highlight this in the other runs. It's the exact same rotation. It's really easy. It's 3 cancel 5 cancel 4. And then you splash in the 1 and the 2, and then you do 3 5 1 2 6 4. Very straightforward rotation, and that's for both uniforms. They're exactly the same. So kudos to the devs. They managed to make 2 characters that are unique and yet play the same, right? Which is pretty interesting. So yeah, going over the rest of the build, besides the Uru, we've got a stage 11 Power of Angry Hulk, and we do have a CTP of Rage. I will be testing him later on with an Obelisk and a CTP of Energy, but I essentially think that the comparisons are going to be the same, because the only offensive difference between these characters is the Trickster passive. The Trickster passive for TVA Loki is 25% guaranteed crit rate and the energy attack. For President Loki, it's the 30% energy attack, and then it's this crazy defense buff. And the defense buff is so good if you're the type of player who gets hit a lot, if you're the type of player who can't dodge enemy mechanics and enemy, you know, those red or purple circles that appear on the ground. If you get beat up and you know, sent back home by Mephisto, this is really going to help you. 50% damage reduction for 10 seconds and a 15% heal for 8 seconds. He's basically always topped up, and you'll see this is especially important and clutch versus Mephisto. So yes, overall damage, if you want the highest possible cannon, it's going to be TVA Loki, and that's why the big ABX dogs are all rocking TVA Loki today and on other days, because he's scoring 11 million, 12 million. He's really pushing the limit. He's very, very meta, very good. However, President Loki is almost as good offensively and brings this whole other defensive arsenal that is going to matter to you. But yeah, as far as synergy goes, yes, 25% guaranteed crit rate obviously has perfect synergy with the CTP of Rage, because this only activates when you crit. So if you crit more, this activates more consistently. That's why we were all laughing when I had a CTP of Rage on Moon Knight. Baby, don't crit. Baby, don't get no damage, right? That's just how it goes. So now I want to highlight for you something else. We're going to save the best for last. We're going to save the stage 35 null first phase. But what I want to show you guys is stage 19 Mephisto. He can do this. He can clear this with a Rage, with just a leadership. We're not even going to give him a support. I'm going to show you a little bit of his offensive capabilities with, you know, appropriate amounts of Pierce and similar cards to mine, but also his defensive capabilities. So we're actually going to switch back and start with TVA Loki. And again, he has iframes, he does have a heal, but it's a one-time heal on one of his skills. So it's not going to be passive, it's not going to be applied over and over again. Normally, you wouldn't play Mephisto without strikers, I acknowledge that, but for TVA Loki, you may need to bring defensive strikers, strikers that reduce the damage you receive, strikers that increase your fire resistance, and those strikers are limited. You don't have unlimited strikers for fire resistance, you only have like 8 or 9 of them. So because of that, it's worth noting, if you're primarily trying to push World Boss Legend and you find yourself dying a lot, maybe President Loki is the better option for you there rather than TVA Loki, especially when, to my testing, the damage difference between them is pretty similar. Again, it's not exactly the same. I can't ignore 25% guaranteed crit rate, but you also can't ignore the fact that I'm already down to half of my HP. And sure, I can dodge around and avoid some of these attacks, but then by doing that, I'm wasting time. And of course, when you waste time and you're not dealing damage, you're actually dealing less damage because you're dealing less DPS, right? Damage per second. So yeah, sure, on paper, TVA Loki definitely has more damage, but DPS is also measured by how long you're staying in the fight. So he ends up clearing that in 50 seconds, which is really good. Right? This is very fast clear, very indicative to me that he could actually clear it. So he has the damage with 22% Pierce and my cards. He has, with a CTP of Rage, he can carry himself on stage 19 with no, Taskmaster type support. There isn't even, actually no, there is a CTP of Insight. Cyclops has a CTP of Insight, but yeah. So you can see what he can do, and this is without strikers, so he can go way faster, right? Really, really good stuff. But look at his HP. I went from 70,000 to what, 18,000? He's hurting, right? If I make a couple more mistakes and the second phase gets harder, he starts to take too much damage. Again, maybe you're the type of player doesn't take damage. That's cool. Then definitely go for TVA Loki. Like it's the, it's going to deal more damage. There's nothing that President Loki does to overcome that 25% guaranteed crit rate. However, if you're the type of player that takes damage, check it out. It's the really cool thing about this comparison, and the really cool thing about covering these two, not only the fact that the rotation is the same, but the fact that they actually do offense and defense differently. Like, I can just stand here and I can just take all of this punishment and I'm fine. I'm actually going to goof up this rotation again with President Loki because I'm a crumb bum. but it doesn't matter because he just overcomes all of it. So yeah, we're having a little bit of a technical difficulty here, but the rotation is the same, you know, in essence. So yeah. Okay, so we're gonna squeeze in a little bit more damage here to make up for the fact that we goofed up. But yeah, the other thing to note that I haven't really been able to showcase is that President Loki's 4th skill is a V-pad skill. So you also have the added defense-offense bonus effect of being able to move around and reposition yourself. And that can come in really handy when you're trying to dodge enemy attacks. So there you go. I goofed up one of his rotations, and he still managed to clear at about the exact same clip. And again, you might be thinking they're doing a lot of damage because you have so much Pierce, but I'm able to replicate this at multiple stages of World Boss Legend. It really does not matter how high or low I go. And to prove it to you, we're going to go all the way up to stage 35 against Null. This is really where it's going to start to get very, very difficult. My current top is stage 39, including 3 members of the Black Order, Proxima Lead plus Supergiant and Black Dwarf. So this is not the Kitty's Playground where any character can come in, any villain that I have, and clear this. You have to have the chops in advance in order to clear this. So let's check it out. We're gonna go ahead again and keep the the pattern simple and go and start with TVA Loki. I do unfortunately have to bring strikers along for this one. I prefer to clear content without strikers so you guys can see what's going on, because otherwise it's just this big kerfuffle of animations and effects. But we're gonna be a little bit cutting it a little bit too close for damage, for time and damage, if we don't include strikers, because this content does get pretty difficult. But it also happens versus Null, where Loki just takes too much damage and he can end up dying. I've ended up dying trying to finish this stage. I'm not going to show you guys the actual attempt to finish the stage just because it takes a long time and it's going to extend the length of the video. But you saw from and I think I did a good enough job with the Mephisto presentation to where you can understand that even though he has a heal on one of his uniforms, a heal is not necessarily enough if the character is getting battered and bruised throughout the duration of the fight. And that's what makes characters with an auto heal actually still very, very valuable. May not have the same amount of damage, but damage is only as important as the character that's still alive. If you're not alive, you can't deal any damage. Okay, so we've actually managed to dodge both cages, which is very impressive. I usually can't dodge both cages. It has delayed my tier 3 procs a little bit because I've had to skip using my own 4th skill. But you can see here that we're on pace for a pretty decent 90-second clear, and that is in line with what I've been able to do. But you also notice that I've lost health, and I just healed a little bit when I popped, I believe, my 4th skill or my 5th skill. But yeah, he hasn't been at full health basically since the match started, and that's kind of what you have to expect with TVA Loki. Gonna do more damage? Yeah. Gonna take more damage? Yeah. It's sort of, it goes hand in hand. So there we go. We finished in 94 seconds. I guessed 90 seconds because this is what my testing has been showing me. 94 seconds. Really, really good. He actually ends up being almost topped up on his HP, so that's pretty impressive. But yeah, in general, I do have to look over my shoulder. Like, I do have to look over at the top left corner a little bit more often when I'm playing TVA Loki, because he doesn't heal that much. On the flip side, when I'm playing President Loki, the blinders just come over my head. And that's honestly why I goof up my rotation sometimes, because it's just so relaxing. I've actually been lucky, though, I will say this, that I haven't had any really bad procs. For those of you that have played with characters that don't have guaranteed crit rate in World Boss Legend content, sometimes you go 5 seconds, 7 seconds, 10 seconds without your rage proc activating, and then your internal rage proc activates and you want to pull out your hair. And I totally get that. I've been lucky thus far in my testing that hasn't really happened much. That may be because I just missed my proc there. That may be because TVA Loki and President Loki have a lot of hits. And actually, when I tested it out in the skill preview, President Loki actually has more hits on his 3-5-4 combo than TVA Loki does. So it really, that 25% guaranteed crit rate is really carrying a lot of water for TVA Loki that it doesn't for President Loki. Because it also, when you guaranteed crit, it means you crit more, and crit damage, of course, multiplies your damage. Okay, there we didn't dodge both, but we did get to squeeze in the tier 3, so I'm not going to count this against his time because his time is actually really good. And again, the fact that I'm using a CTP of Rage right? And the fact that I am missing 25% guaranteed crit rate should mean that this is way slower. And yet here we are with a time that's going to be as good, if not better, than what it was for TVA. So there we go. We're actually 2 seconds faster. So again, stage 19 Mephisto, stage 35 Null, they're basically neck and neck, right? They're basically neck and neck. Even though TVA Loki has the advantage, especially with a Rage, of 25% guaranteed crit rate. So to me, that really breaks it down as follows. In my opinion, again, you feel free to choose whichever one you like. There's honestly no wrong answer. So if you think TVA Loki's better, if you think President Loki's better for basically 99% of content, you're right, because it's your opinion and you should play the game you want. Essentially, the only game mode where I think there is a clear, uncut winner is ABX. If you're an ABX person, you probably don't even need this video to tell you TVA Loki is the way to go. He's the bee's knees for ABX, especially if you don't have the cost or you don't have the investment. You can't afford the cost of brilliant CTPs of energy, because a CTP of Rage is going to outperform an energy in ABX. It's going to even outperform a mighty energy in ABX, which is already reforged. CTP of Rage is so cost efficient for ABX that it just makes perfect sense that it's going to be worthwhile to pick up this uniform because of the guaranteed crit rate. However, in my opinion, for World Boss Ultimate, I think we have a clear winner with the 5 seconds of mind control, the paralysis, the healing, the damage reduction, all that good stuff. The increased damage taken. I think President Loki is going to win. It's not by much, I will say that, but I do think he edges out TVA Loki. And then for World Boss Legend, I really think it's going to come down to your playstyle. Personally, I would like to just take it easy, and I do make mistakes from time to time, so I'm probably going to be rocking President Loki a little bit more often, unless I get used to using him in ABX. Then I might just be lazy to switch over his uniform, time after time, but I do really like the fact that he heals so much with this uniform, and I basically get the same amount of damage anyways. Additionally, although TVA Loki will still be better with an Obelisk or a CTP of energy because of the guaranteed crit rate, it's not going to be as noticeable as it is right now between him and President Loki. So you can also consider that if you're not with a Rage, I'm creating the biggest gap between TVA and President in terms of offensive output because of that guaranteed crit rate. But if you use a CTP of energy or a regular proc obelisk or a CTP of destruction or whatever, that gap is going to be tighter, and President Loki is basically going to get a bit of a bump because there's not as much of an emphasis, right? That 25% guaranteed crit rate is not carrying even more water than it would normally be doing. So yeah, that's my breakdown. I think they're both amazing uniforms. I do think they're better for different things, but ultimately it matters what you think and how you want to play the game and who you want to be looking at when you're playing the game, right? Because they look really distinct. I think a lot of people would just prefer to see variant on the back because that just looks so cool. So yeah, hit me up in the comments down below. Let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.